Hi, welcome back to the farm. My name is Roz, also known as Passioned Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. You'll have to excuse the not great hair and slightly flushed, sweaty look today. It is really, really humid. I tried washing my hair to see if that would actually make me feel a little bit better, and it's just done nothing. So it's a bit of a frizzy mess, and it is really, really warm. I have done a bit of more weeding this week. It has been cool a little bit, and then it's been like super hot. So I was able to attack the nasturtium out here and get it off the path and do some weeding here where the strawberries are. And now I think it's ready for mulch. So maybe on the weekend, if we don't get a whole stack of rain, that could be something that gets done then. We also built a few different types of tree guards to try out trying to protect the trees from the sheep. So we now have them over in with the chickens again because we have built these guards around the peach and apple trees that are in there because we discovered that they were trying to eat those, even though they were slightly a bit more established. So one we built with pallets. We only had 3 pallets, so we could only do one that way. Another we did with slats of wood, similar to a pallet up to a height. And then a couple of others, we just fixed the wire that was already around it up onto high posts up on star pickets. So we're going to see how each of these work, if they're at the right height, if there's the right gap in between so that they can't stick their head through and eat the low foliage, and how sturdy they are. And hopefully we will find one that works, which we can then translate down here into their paddock, because 5 of the trees are doing really well. So if we're able to build a protection around them before we put them back into that paddock, then hopefully we will eventually get trees that are going to grow and give them shade, rather than having them just continue to eat them all the time. I also got them shorn this week. The shearer came out this morning, and he was done super quick. They were so well behaved, all 3 of them, which I'm really pleased about. They didn't really wriggle too much. They didn't get any nicks or cuts or anything. He said they were looking in really good condition and that their feet were really great, which is good news because they were on quite muddy ground for a while. So to have someone say that they are looking good is quite affirming. So I used a little area up near the chook shed. There's like a small sort of enclosed space before you go into either of the other yards. So we were able to encourage them in there with a little bit of grain. And then the shearer put down a mat and he sheared all 3 of them, gave them their worming and did their feet. And then he sort of pulled some of the really grotty bits of wool off the edges. And then we bagged them up into 3 massive garbage bags. So now I have 3 lots of fleece from each of them. No, 3 from Evie and Vito and 2 from Hurley that I need to wash and process and try and spin up at some point. So they actually look really good, these fleeces. So I'm really happy with that. And they're funny now though. So they're sheep, they're back in with the chickens. And as soon as they got back in there, they're all like, they're looking at each other like, I don't know who you are. What's happened to you? Who are you? And Evie's still barring, like she doesn't know who these 2 fellas are that she's in there with. She doesn't recognize them. It's really quite weird. Yeah, they sort of were sniffing at each other and looking at each other a bit strangely. I'm sure they'll settle down, but yeah, they're just acting a little bit crazy this afternoon. Last weekend, I went to a Tea Time Yarn retreat market, and I also taught a brioche class there as well, which was a lot of fun. I really do enjoy teaching classes. I'm teaching a class this Saturday, so it'll be after this video comes out, at Unwind Craft Cafe. I'm doing continental knitting for English knitters, which has been a super popular class so far. So that will be a fun one to do on the weekend. The other thing I have done business-wise this week is I have dyed up a batch on a new yarn base. So I am looking at introducing a sport weight or a 5-ply yarn, and it is a merino cashmere silk. And I have tried dyeing it up a different method than I have done previously, and I'm just experimenting with, it's a really light purple. It's probably not coming up quite accurately on the camera, with brown speckles through it, and in some points that speckles have broken, so you've got slightly different colors, some reds, some blues coming through where the dye has broken. So I'm really excited to get this wound up and to potentially start a project with it. And if I like how it knits up and I'm happy with the drape and how it all works up, I will hopefully be stocking this in my shop next year, and I will be doing some colors similar to this because this was a lot of fun to dye, and I really like the effect that it has made on the yarn. Of course, I have continued to knit on socks this week. I finished the single sock that I was working on last week out of the stripy yarn. That one is all done. I just need to weave in the ends. And I've now started some two at a time. These are going to be a Christmas gift for a friend, so I need to get motoring on these. But as you can see, I've done quite a bit, and I only started these a few days ago. And I'm not caring that the stripes are not matching. I actually think that they're kind of cool to be siblings rather than twins, but I'm just going to make sure that they are the same number of rows and everything by doing them two at a time so that they will fit really nicely. And I have actually finished my comfy sweater out of the 52 weeks of Easy Knits. I'm really excited that this is done. Perfect timing. Now I can wear it now that it's sweltering hot. It will be ready for winter. I will be able to block it over here in the shed and it will dry super quick. So that is great. That's one benefit of finishing a thick jumper during summer. But obviously I'm not going to be able to wear it. Otherwise, I would have had it on for you today, but it is just way too hot. So I still need to weave in a few of the ends, but I might even wait until I've blocked it before I do that. So here it is here. And I'm super happy with it. Once I had done that first sleeve and got over procrastinating about continuing to try it on and deciding on the length, the second one went by really quick, and then I just added a tiny little bit more length to the bottom, and then I did the bind off. So I did make a few modifications, and I've talked about some of these as I went along. I started with a tubular cast on, which was not what was called for in the pattern, but having looked at the actual picture, that's what it looked like. And they didn't do a contrast color for the neckline. It just had the body color, but I decided to do the contrast on the neck as well. And then the contrast with a tubular bind off on the sleeve, and the contrast with a tubular bind off on the end of the body as well. And this tubular bind off for the body took forever. It is a slow process to do, but it is totally worth it to see the finished result. It looks really, really great with that just rolling over and looking really smooth. And it doesn't gather in the same way as it does if you do a bind off after ribbing in just a regular kind of bind off, a knitted bind off. This is a sewn bind off. I did notice after I'd done maybe about this much of the bind off that I had made a mistake like back here, and there were a few that I'd gotten out of sequence with, so I had to pick it back and redo it. But as I said, even though it took a long time, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And it's one of those things, once you sit there and you get into a rhythm and you just go knit, purl, like it actually works out to be quite easy, as long as you don't lose your place. So I did do a few extra rows for the yoke before the underarm, because I always find that I don't have enough space for my like arm width, this bit here. And you know that I made changes to the sleeve length because that's what took me so long. So I didn't do anywhere near as many decreases as it called for in the pattern, and I left it quite a few stitches on the needle at the end as well. I'm really happy with it not being too restrictive, especially when it's like that rib, so it bunches up anyway. So that is my finished comfy, and that's in my yarn, my DK yarn in teal not green, and the wispy base, the silk mohair in the wildflowers colorway. And now that I've finished that, I am dreaming about future projects. I'm thinking about casting on a couple of like summer holiday kind of things. I do need to get those socks done first, so they're going to happen before I do anything. But I do have a couple of things already balled up and ready to go. And I thought I would quickly just show you what I'm thinking about doing. So I thought a good summer knit while I was just sitting around on holiday would be the Big Blue shawl by Meg Gadsby. And I found this Fiore Sport Gradient ball, which is enough yarn for the project because the project calls for 2 balls of a sport weight, and this is like a massive ball. My only thing is whether I just start from the middle with the light pink and work out to the purple, or whether I start from the outside and work in. I'm thinking that the top of the shawl I'll make the pink, and then I'll work my way out to the darker colors. So that is project number 1 that will probably be cast on in the next week or so. And then I have 2 patterns by Marie Amelie Designs that I would like to make. One of them I'm thinking about doing with my new sport weight yarn, and that is called Flamboyant, which is like a sort of boxy, short-sleeved top. So I think that would be a good use of this yarn here. Another summer top that I'd like to make is Kentia, and it is this one here. So it's 2 different colors, a color for the top lace section and then a color for the body. And I have these 2 skeins of the Ella Ray Kids Sparkle, which I think would work really well. I'm thinking probably the blue on the top for the lace and then this for the body, I think. But I haven't made my mind up 100%. Maybe it could go that way. No, this way, I think. So I have those 2 top projects that I want to make. I think that having a few more short sleeve tops that can be worn sort of spring, autumn, maybe a little bit into summer, because this is quite a lightweight yarn, so it should be fairly breathable. I think that would be a fun thing to put on the needles rather than a big, massive, thick jumper like the one I just finished. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.